Greetings everybody, my name is DJ, this is Reality Synthesis. As you can see, this is my new model of manifestation that is designed to correctly and accurately describe how and why manifestation works the way that it does. By the way, if you're listening to what I'm saying, I strongly recommend you to actually watch the video. I know people listen, this is not a video you want to listen to, you want to watch, right? We're talking about the feeling. We're going to tell you about the feeling and what the feeling actually is, how you can experience it, how it works, how you get into it, out of it, all of that stuff, right? We're going to do a dive into the idea of the feeling. So to get started, I highly recommend everybody, after you've watched this one, go back and watch a video called Reality Synthesis Fully Explains Manifestation. That will explain to you more about this whole state and context thing, which is important to understand how we actually experience the feeling, because the feeling is really our experience of a state. And what is a state? The state is an outlook on life. It's basically a lens of perception which we view things through. So as I defined in that video, there are concepts which are sensory experiences and, well, not even sense, but the essence of what we want to experience. I made a video, if you go back 2 videos from now, Neville Goddard Ladder Experiment Explained, something like that. That video discusses concepts in significantly more detail than I would do in here, but to understand the basics of it. So for example, we have all these different languages that describe something, right? You know, like for example, you know, chicken, right? Every language has a way of describing with sound, with a sensory impression. So concept is chicken, not the word, but chicken. What does that represent to you? It's a representation. How can we represent this idea, this thing, the concept? That's why I call it the concept. The context that we experience is a piece of what we understand of as a state. So it's something that we perceive. Now the we, the part of us, is the sense of self. Now this is the important thing to understand. The sense of self is really the basis of what a state comes from, what your experience of the feeling is. Okay, so you are actually feeling the feeling right now. Whether you're aware of it or not, you already are. You are feeling the feeling of whatever, you know, is playing out at a baseline level. Understand? You can actually experience charge and be elevated or dipped, but that doesn't mean that that's actually what you're feeling. So you've got to understand that the feeling is not the charge that you experience. So we need to separate charge, which is emotion, from the feeling, because they are different senses. There are actually 9 senses. The feeling is nothing more than the target that you have, that you associate towards at a neutral charged state. State is context. So context is your relationship, well, sense of self relates to a concept, as in I relate to chicken. What does chicken feel like? I can experience chicken. You target chicken with your mind. Basically think of the feeling as you are targeting something. You target chicken. It's hard to describe because it's a different sense. We don't experience it with the 5 senses at all. It's like an intuitive sense. So target chicken. You have chicken targeted in your mind, and then you relate to that somehow. Do you want this or do you not? No, you don't want chicken. You don't desire chicken. There's no contrast. So as I said, contrast is what we experience. So it's either where we are versus where we want to be, or where we are versus where we don't want to be. And so we experience the contrast between these points, the proportionality, the interferometry. And so when we get triggered by something, say your SP says something, what they're doing is not triggering you. What they're doing is not the cause of the charge that is brought up. The charge is being brought up because there is a part of you that is compromised. You must understand, this is very important. There is a part of you that is compromised. Okay? And that part of you wants to express itself, but it can't, because it's got all these layers of conditions and things on top of it that it can't just freely, you know, feel itself to be real the way you want it to be. And so what they're doing by them saying the thing or them doing the thing or whatever external circumstance it is, right? That is the concept that you are associating to in comparison to where you desire to be. So it's like this. I should draw this up on the board. Don't really have space, but imagine this, right? Concept that you are experiencing with the 5 senses reminds sense of self in comparison to where you want to be of lack, right? So there's distance between where you want to be and where you are now, and that is the sensory trigger, right? So it's like this 3-dimensional graph. I would draw it like that, right? So the charge is being resultant from your association to a specific sensation, a concept that's being arisen within your mind. And of course the feeling then is going to be brought up, lack, I don't have. So you're targeting, I don't have. So that reminder is what you're going to experience as the feeling. And of course the charge will associate to the feeling, because the charge comes from the association that we have to things in the contrast. The more contrast there is, typically speaking, the more charge there is. And the more charge there is, the more subconscious capacity is required to experience it, right? Because every single sensory experience that we have, every emotional experience with charge, they all take capacity. They all take subconscious capacity. Go and watch the previous video that I made from this one. It's literally called Subconscious Capacity in Reality Synthesis, right? That will explain more about subconscious capacity. It's too deep to go over here. Go and connect the dots. I can't explain all of these in one video because there's so much stuff, right? I'd be talking for like 5 hours. But either way, charge comes from our associations to concepts, which is based on the feeling. So I'm sure that you're starting to get an idea of what the feeling is. It's really this target that we have that we want to experience, that we either feel that we are or aren't capable of doing it. And the barrier that most people have to experiencing the feeling is a sense of satisfaction. This doesn't cause satisfaction. Satisfaction doesn't come from feeling the feeling, although Neville says that we are experiencing hunger. He talks about hunger, right? And that desire is like hunger, and that I have a quote on my website on the aetheraeon notebook. He talks about this whole world exists for us to satisfy hunger, right? So all of these things out in the world that we experience, that is there to appease our hunger for experience. It's not there to, remind us of anything other than that we are not where we want to be. So we have a divine mind. I don't want to say divine intelligence or whatever, but you can think of it like you have a greater consciousness that is feeding you desire, 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 desire. And it's not that it's trying to, screw you over and make you feel bad or anything like that. This is supposed to be the states that you're embodying, right? Because as you go through all of the states, it leads to greater coherency and immortality. That's the long-term picture, right? But you have a desire that you have, and when you feel this desire, it's like something that you need to fulfill. You're not satisfied in the current moment. You're not satisfied where you are. You need more than you currently have. And so the secret to actually feeling the feeling and being satisfied is to accepting that it's okay that you don't have it now. That really is the basis of this whole thing. Gratitude, basically. But not gratitude in this like forced manner. It's that, yeah, I'm okay if I don't have this thing right now. Do you understand? The feeling, this neutral charge, the satisfaction and the context, the association between the sense of self and the concept, really is the basis of, I don't need this thing right now, it's okay, it's alright. The charge is dropped because there's no comparison, because there's no differential between where you are now and where you desire to be. It's almost like negated. When you feel okay in the present moment of not having it, and again, it's not that you don't desire it, it's that you're okay with not having it. Therefore, the comparison between not having it, it bounces off of you. So when the concept arises within the world, the stimulus, the sensory stimulus, it arises in the world and it hits you. Like the SP says, I don't love you. It's like, okay, yeah, for sure, okay, whatever. Have fun. You become the immovable object because you know that this distance it's conjugate, right? There's no difference. The contrast is fulfilled. Basically, there's no differential between where you want to be, the feeling, and where you are. So that's basically the essence of the feeling. So being okay with not having the thing that you want is more or less experiencing the foundation of the feeling. Because you're negating charge, you're able to specifically tap into this sense. It's a different sense. So when you negate charge, you are able to more concisely and consciously direct the feeling sense. Because again, this is a completely different sense than all of these other parts, right? We want to experience the feeling in the most true sense. Because Neville says that we should be wearing it like a, what did he say? Like a new piece of clothing. It's until it's natural to us, right? Until it's completely natural to us, we feel that we're wearing it, and we can consciously experience the contrast. But by being satisfied in our current state, we negate the contrast because we are okay with not having it. It's okay to not have the thing. You do not need the thing right here, right now. You don't need to be charged, because charge warps your perception of the feeling. So the point of this is to feel satisfied in the present moment. And that sounds so, anti what we've been told, because we're supposed to be hyping ourselves up and, oh, I've got the desire, I've got the desire, I've got the desire, I've got the desire, yeah, I've got this is mine, I'm in the end, I'm living in the end, yeah, I'm feeling high, yeah, well, we've been told to sustain this immense state of pleasure, right? Pleasure is going to destroy your subconscious capacity. You do not want to experience pleasure. You're going to dip. What's going to happen? All of the resistance at the baseline level, it's going to surface because there's no contrast to hold it back. The baseline level has shifted, and so what already exists there, right, that you've been distracting yourself from by feeling high on your own existence, basically, all of that charge underlying that, your sense of self, all of that negativity, it's going to come up and you're going to dip, right? If you don't, you have to go through the cycle to see it, right? If you log when you're charged and not charged, and you log what triggers you, you'll actually find the patterns, and you'll actually learn. In future, you say, "Oh, that's there." It won't negate the charge, but you'll recognize, okay, that's a trigger, and then you ask yourself, "What about me is this specific trigger reminding me of? What part of my sense of self is lacking? Where am I not looking at? What am I avoiding? What is it that I'm trying to layer over the top of with elevated charge?" Because that's what you're doing. People tell you to layer over the top of your resistance with more positive charge. But again, that just drains your subconscious capacity and prevents you from actually having the clarity to resolve it. That's the problem. You want to negate charge. You want to be stable with charge. You don't want to dip or peak. You just want to have clarity. You want to have baseline stability. Which, by the way, I have a subliminal on the website which significantly boosts your ability to have a stable state of charge, right? Especially if you're already in a decent state. The subliminal will only amplify that neutral state of charge and allow you to go further and further and further, deeper and deeper and deeper into experiencing the feeling, right? It's not necessarily going to be something that'll completely it won't wipe away charge. It will bring coherency to what it is that the feeling is currently experienced, right? So if you can tap into the sensation of the feeling, this will take you significantly deeper into it. So it's like if you're doing a stat scene or something and you're listening to this, you would go significantly deeper into it than if you didn't. You can also do it during the gazing. The gazing is also another method that I will teach and I will make another video on, because there's so much to discuss about the feeling. Not the feeling, the gazing method, because it's like SATs but open eye. The gazing practice is another one that I really need to discuss in detail, because there's many pieces to that also play a part. But to understand, again, the feeling is, I'm okay with not having the thing. Therefore, you are relieved and you are satisfied. Do you understand? Satisfaction doesn't come from fulfilling the desire. It comes from recognizing that I don't have resistance surrounding the desire and that it's okay to not have it now. It's this whole thing about dropping the need to have stuff, being okay in the moment. And again, this all comes from dropping charge. When you're not charged, you will be able to feel the feeling. That's the key point that I'm trying to make. Because when you're an emotional wreck and you're up and down all over the place, you don't have stability. And the key to understanding how to negate charge when the triggers comes up is fulfilling the conditions that this part of your reality, this sensory stimulus, is reminding you of, that your sense of self is lacking in comparison to where you want to be. And so when you meet that need and you fulfill that part of you, the charge no longer has a reason to trigger you, because the association that it's reminding you of is already fulfilled. Therefore, you can tap into the feeling and walk in your day-to-day life without being triggered up and down, up and down. You cannot use the feeling to negate charge. I mean, you kind of can to a degree, but it depends. You should be using the feeling and fulfilling conditions. You should be doing all of it. Everything. It all adds up, right? It's not this or that or whatever the heck. It all plays a part. But repetitive thinking, continuously being in charge, basically filling up your subconscious capacity, is absolutely going to cause you to dip, and it's going to cause you to fail. You are not going to get anywhere if you do any of this repetitive mindset work that so many of these people on this law of assumption community, they love to talk about repetitive mindset work. It's not about repetitive mindset work. It's simply about having baseline charge and returning to the feeling when you feel yourself wavering. So you feel the contrast. Oh, I'm not in the feeling, because you will feel familiar with it. Okay, you will begin to feel, oh, that's what that feels like. So you bring the concept into the mind of what you want to experience. And then with the specific feeling sense, which I can't describe to you how to do it because there's no way of describing it. I can only discuss the aspects around what can help conjure it for you. Because there's no way, it's impossible to describe how to experience the feeling, because it's a completely different sense. It's a completely different sense. You cannot describe it in words, you cannot describe it in images, or anything like that. It's nothing more than a knowing of who you are. But again, that's a contrast. Are you where you desire to be? As in, is the need that you desire to have met fulfilled to a degree that you don't have charge brought up when it is brought up? That is really the essence of the feeling. So you can be faced with seemingly negative things that previously would have triggered you, right? And it won't cause the charge to build up. It won't cause the charge to raise. because that fulfillment is already present within you. You are okay with not having it. And therefore, you stabilize the feeling. And when the feeling is stabilized, of course, that is who you are being. And who you are being is what manifests in reality. And therefore, because you drop it and don't care, by the way, dropping the seed is what I'm doing. I'm discussing basically dropping the seed. You cannot drop the seed unless you be yourself without compromise, which again is about this whole mediating charge thing and also fulfilling the conditions that are present. So being yourself without compromise and mediating the charge that you need to be, fulfilling the stimulus that reminds you of a part of yourself that's not fulfilled, right? When you fulfill these parts of you by being yourself shamelessly and uncompromisingly, you fulfill these parts and you recognize, oh, I am fulfilling this part of myself. I'm not feeling lack. I don't need to feel lack. And it's not from this thing of I'm okay in the present moment, because when something that is highly charged, something that is highly stimulating to your sense of self that reminds you of this lack to a really powerful degree, you're going to get knocked out of this neutral state and you're going to get negative again. It will happen. I'm not saying that I'm trying to predict any bad outcomes. I'm just stating the fact that we all experience this stuff. So you should be working in the tangible sense to fulfill these conditions as well. Acting with courage in the world wherever you can to fulfill the conditions. And again, actions are not bad. They are fulfilling the conditions by you exposing yourself to circumstances which will confirm to you that this fear that you have really doesn't need to be feared at all. Like, for example, exposure therapy, right? You expose yourself to uncomfortable feelings and essentially you numb yourself to them where they don't trigger you anymore. The charge goes away. Like I used to, for example, go out into the middle of like a really populated area and do some qigong in the middle of them all, I would feel very, very, very uncomfortable. But I thought, I don't care, it's only temporary. They don't feel my emotion. Maybe some people can, but they don't feel it. They just see me doing my thing. They have no idea if I'm uncomfortable or not. They might be able to pick up bits and pieces if they're really looking, but the point is that your charge is temporary. It doesn't determine what you can and can't do. So the point is, again, fulfilling the conditions is a part of how you can fulfill what's causing this charge to come in, right? You can actually close the gap between where you are and where you want to be because you're discharging the lack. And so at a baseline level, by discharging the lack, you don't shift out of the feeling. And so you can more consciously walk with the feeling. Do you understand? That's how you bring satisfaction in at a baseline level. Not at a temporary peak and dip level, but at a baseline level. So all of what I have said today connects the dots to the feeling. The feeling, once again, you target what you want. You basically do what Neville Goddard says. What would it feel like if I had this thing right now? You might feel a little bit of positive charge come from it. A little bit of positive charge is fine, right? That contrast is basically telling you that this little bit of gap that's still there. Oof, I'm fulfilling it. It's like you're tuning the radio, right? You're tuning the feeling sense. You're tuning the radio, right? You're thinking. Oh, I hit it. The signal comes through. You hear the station loud and clear. It's a bit fuzzy. Whew, there it is. Radio, fully clear. I can hear exactly what's going on. I can hear the voices, all of that stuff. Whatever's on the radio station. That's the best analogy I can give. You tune into the feeling. You adjust your vibration, right? And all of the law of attraction people are going to love jumping on that one. But again, it's not about vibration or anything like that. It's just the proportionality that you have to divinity. That's really all you're mediating. And of course, by you fine-tuning this, your essence, the baseline feeling that you're experiencing, that changes how reality is going to manifest for you. That's what that's about. Do you understand now what the feeling is? Do you understand now what charge is, what satisfaction, what context, states, blah, 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 all of this stuff is? Do you understand now what manifestation is? Do you understand how it's not a battle? It's seemingly a battle in some cases if you've got significant amounts of charge built up and you've got all these parts of you that are unfulfilled and all that stuff. Because everything in reality will cause that, which, by the way, I've been there, okay? I have been in the position where I was basically disabled. Like I couldn't function in life because I was so anxious nonstop. I had visceral physical reactions in my body that caused physical symptoms from feeling anxiety that was so intense. And it was whenever I imagined things that were positive. Like I imagined my SP saying what I wanted, it would make me dip for days, if not weeks sometimes. And it would happen over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Nothing I did would change until I recognized that what I was told by the law of assumption gurus was utter trash. It doesn't work. At least for people in the lower baseline states, it doesn't work at all. So I'll say this: if you have charge, if you are charged and you have negative associations that are being brought up and you're feeling, all of these bad feelings constantly, right? You need to detach from that stuff and do what I've suggested by fulfilling the conditions that are associated to it. Negate the charge. When you negate the charge, you will have clarity of the feeling because your subconscious capacity will expand. You will have the ability to fine-tune the radio without all this other stuff warping the signal, right? The sense of self will be refined. And therefore, you will associate to your desires in such a way that brings the satisfaction. And you will be able to see the sensory stimulus that previously would have triggered you and say, okay, yeah, okay, sure, have fun. Yep, that's cool. All right, let's do it. Sure, whatever, have fun. You just won't care because there's no charge. It's just neutral. You don't care. It's just like anything else. Like, someone talks about, I don't know, hamsters or something. I don't know, some random thing that came into my head, right? You don't care about hamsters. I mean, they're cute and cuddly, but you prefer, I don't know, cats or something, or dogs or horses or whatever it is, crocodiles. And it's like you don't have any association to it, therefore you don't care. Because your sense of self is refined. It's not distanced from where you want to be. The trigger doesn't cause that distance to be brought up. The pathways are not firing that are resistive. Therefore, when you have neutral charge, you can walk in the world feeling the feeling consciously and do what all of these, manifesting gurus talk about. Well, actually, I would still say, no, you shouldn't do what they talk about because they tell you to be charged all the time and constantly think and fill up your capacity. Do what Neville says. Okay, doing what Neville says when you're in that place of having baseline charge, that will work for you. Okay? Doing sats, doing all this stuff. But I would say doing the gazing periodically during the day, and I'll make a video on this, doing the gazing periodically during the day will be the best bet that you can have to bringing some awareness to the feeling. Because when you are zoned out and almost in like a trance-like state, that's when you can best fine-tune it. The less objective sensory experience that you have in the world, the more that you can easily fine-tune the feeling. And again, the subliminal that I saw on the website is one of the most powerful subliminals you can possibly experience. So many testimonials of people telling me that it's very, very powerful in terms of their ability to stop thinking, as in negating the things that cause them to have charge. Again, this is not if you're in charge, it doesn't dissipate charge. The dissipating charge is a different thing altogether. That's about you bringing positive associations into your mind, reminding yourself of things that do work for you. So you remind yourself when you are charged, oh, I do have this value, oh, I do have this thing, oh, I could have anyone else, I don't need them. Whatever it is that you use to bring a positive association in, you remind yourself of something that you do have the distance closed to where you desire, and it shifts the context. Therefore, you're in a different state, therefore the charge disappears, you feel more satisfied, and therefore you can fine-tune your feeling. There it is, there's the feeling. You can get on with your day. That's what Neville Goddard says. Just shift states, get into the feeling, and don't beat yourself up over it. You just shift states. That's if the charge is able to be mediated, because if you're having visceral physical reactions, it's a completely different story. You should be physically acting in that case as well as imagining, but you should be focusing on physically fulfilling what you can. The more emotionally charged you are, the more conditions you have to fulfill. And again, doing what I said in those other videos will help you more so than doing any of this feeling work, because you cannot fine-tune the feeling. Your subconscious capacity is filled up. Again, watch my other videos and it will connect the dots. But that's really all I can say about the feeling. It's a completely different sense. Nobody else talks about that because, again, they don't understand alchemy, they don't understand metaphysics, they don't understand the connection that I'm trying to talk about here. They are metaphysically illiterate, they do not have experience in going through what I've talked about. They don't have their own model that describes it, they're just reading things and relaying what they read to you. They don't have that experience, therefore they cannot coach you with it because they don't know how, they don't know what that's doing. They think it's all just, think in your head, thinking. Well, as I've said, thinking fills up your subconscious capacity because you don't have a subconscious mind. You don't have one. You do not fundamentally have a subconscious mind. It is expandable, it is contractible. It depends upon your coherency to divinity. Your subconscious mind is the measure, or the subconscious capacity is the measure to your divinity. The sensory capacity, the sensory sensitivity is also a measure of that as well, because it's a measure of how coherent you are based on the associations that you have to positive or negative phenomena. But that's really all I can say. So if you want to shift states, the context, you negate the charge, you feel the satisfaction, you remind yourself of things that work for you. And when you're at this neutral charged state, again, you don't want to be peaking, you want to be neutral. When you're in a neutral charged state, you can fine-tune the feeling and you can walk in life and you can do all the Neville Goddard stuff. This is the requirement to apply Neville Goddard stuff, right? When you've done all of this work, the feeling, Neville Goddard stuff applies. All of the, all of the discussions about the feeling, this, that, and the other, walking with it, wearing it, until it becomes natural and normal. When it becomes natural and normal, it's a period of time where you're just soaking in the feeling. You're saturating yourself in the feeling. But you're not saturating yourself in a charged sense. It's the effortless effort, basically, effortless effort. You're just fine-tuning the radio. That's the effortless effort. You're thinking without thinking and feeling without feeling, because it's a different sense. It's a totally different sense. You're not thinking, you're not feeling, it's a different sense. Okay, so understand that the feeling is a completely different sense that we need to learn to be in touch with more. It's more of an intuitive sense. I don't believe it is the intuitive sense, but it's very closely related to it. Again, we have 9 senses, so of course there's all this stuff that we've not been taught about. But I'm here to uncover that stuff and tell you about it, right? That's why I'm here. That's why I created Reality Synthesis. That's why you should subscribe and figure out all of these other things I've talked about. We'll go watch my other videos, and together we'll figure this out and actually manifest the desires that we want. We'll be fulfilled, and we'll reach the end goal of completing the great work. Fulfill the promise, become immortal beings. That's the point. That's why we're here. Anyway, I want to thank every single one of you for watching the video. I hope you share this around so people can actually get an idea of what the feeling really is and why it's not anything that's really been talked about, because, it doesn't work. If it worked, everyone would get the result, but it doesn't, because we've not been told how it works. There's so much more to this. You have to be satisfied in where you are in order to really experience the feeling. Otherwise, you'll have all of this other stuff, and you won't be able to have the fine-tuned radio, as I discussed. So as I said, I hope you share the video, I hope you like the video, and tell people about Reality Synthesis, and that this is fully here to explain everything so that you can actually have a working model. I want to thank all of you for watching. If you need to watch the video again, go over it again, go and watch my other content, take notes, understand it, do all of that stuff. Spend as much time as you need to comprehend what I'm saying and apply it and experience it for you to get the results that you want. Concept, sense of self, context, state. We get it, right? So anyway, I want to say thank you all for watching and stay legendary. I will see you in the next video.